Hey fellow duelists, it's RagingRaidRaptor here, coming at you with what I'm referring to as my Lair of Dark Raidraptors. But without further ado, let's get started. Starting off with, we have 3 copies of Raidraptor Tribute Lanius. It is still an excellent 1-card 4-strix, as it can send Mimicry to search Fuzzy, or send Fuzzy to the graveyard in order to search a copy of itself. Then you can summon Fuzzy to make a 4-strix with. Next up, we are still running 3 copies of Mimicry. Although this card can be dead in the hand at times, I feel like you still need to run 3 in the instances where you still need to get the 3rd search effect for the non-level 4 Raidraptor cards and the Raidraptor spell and trap cards. But you can maybe reduce this down to 2 if you feel like it's really causing that much inconsistency. Next up, we are still running 3 copies of Fuzzy Lanius. Although 3 might be considered a bit too much, I still prefer to have 3 because there have been instances where I felt like I really needed it, and the fact that it makes very good discard fodder for a Lair of Darkness definitely helps the deck out. Next up, we are still running 3 copies of Vanishing Lanius. He is the card that enables multiple Raidraptors to be summoned at once, as its effect is not a hard once per turn effect. Next up, I'm still running 1 copy of Pain Lanius. I'm still running this because I'm still running Ice Beast Aerophane and the Raidraptor Xyz monsters, and I did find it a bit easier to use than Singing Lanius, which I'm not running in this build, simply because of the fact that it can special summon itself from the hand without having an Xyz monster on the field. Which, considering that you may only be able to summon 1 without any follow-up plays, has definitely proven to be a lot more useful than Singing Lanius, in my opinion. Next up, we are still running 1 copy of Lastrix. As we all know, this is the card that makes it easy to summon Ultimate Falcon with. However, there have been instances where it can be useful for a Link monster, which I will get to in a minute. And now for the Lair of Darkness cards. And starting off with them, we have 3 copies of Amarith, the Wicked Warden. In YG Otoli's Lair of Dark Heraldics deck profile, he was only running 2. However, I would personally be an advocate of running 3, just because it's the terraforming that enables you to Lair of Darkness, and also the Stratos that enables you to search out the Lair of Darkness boss monster, Darkest Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. And at worst, if you do summon it, you can easily tribute it or another dark attribute monster to draw another card, which is why I personally think you should run it at 3. And speaking of Lair of Darkness, we are running 2 copies of Lair of Darkness. I thought that having 2 would be enough in this instance, since I am running 3 copies of Amarith. However, since I am running a ratio of 2 copies of this card plus 3 copies of Amarith, it gives you a 12.5% chance of actually seeing this card. And I did find that having the extra copy was causing a bit of inconsistency with the deck. So for that reason, I am running 2. And next up, we are running 3 copies of Lilith, Lady of Lament. Definitely an excellent card, considering that we are running 5 normal trap cards in this deck. And also the fact that its effect is a spell speed 2 effect definitely makes it an excellent card. The next Lair of Darkness card is 1 copy of Darkest Diabolos, Lord of the Lair. Although you can take this up to 2, I personally prefer to have this card at 1, simply because of the fact that it is searchable with Amarith, and also the fact that it can special summon itself from the graveyard. Definitely makes it an excellent Foolish Burial target, which we are running in this build. And finally, we are running 2 proxy versions of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now I would prefer to have this at 3, However, the deck was running out of space to accommodate the 40 card limit that I personally think the deck really needs. However, I would suggest maybe testing the ratios to see whether or not you feel Ash Blossom at 3 would be more beneficial for you. Next up, I am running 2 copies of Raidraptor Nest. Now, the reason why I've reduced the ratios down from 3 to 2 is partly because of space reasons, but also the fact that it was starting to brick a bit more at 3 in instances where I could only summon either one Raidraptor monster or one Lair of Darkness monster. And also the fact that the game has progressed to the point where it's so quick and that back row removal isn't as prominent as it used to be, I feel like 2 copies is perfectly fine in this modern day. Next up, we are running 3 copies of Lair of Darkness. Definitely a staple in any Dark Attribute deck, and should be played at the maximum ratios. Next up, I am running 2 copies of Rank Up Magic Skip Force. Although I am playing 3 in my pure Raidraptor build, I feel like 2 is the perfect ratio for this build, partly because of space reasons, and also the fact that you're not using the Raidraptor cards to win as often. Next up, we are running 2 copies of Rank Up Magic Soul Shaver Force. I wish I could put this card up to 3, as it is a 1 card rank 6 play, which can be greatly beneficial if you've summoned a Link monster. However, I'm only running 2 due to space reasons. Next up, we are still running the 1 copy of Foolish Burial. Definitely still an excellent card to get your deck going by sending Fuzzy, Mimicry, and Darkest Diablos to the graveyard. Next up, we are still running 1 Raidraptor Readiness. I feel like you should still run this card, as having your single 4-strix on the field has become more important for your follow-up plays, and any protection it can provide is definitely going to be helpful. Also, the fact you can banish it from your graveyard to reduce all damage you take to 0 definitely helps with the stall factor. Next up, I am running 2 proxy versions of Torrential Tribute. Now, I know you're laughing at me, but I simply could not find my copies of Torrential Tribute anywhere, and I thought it would be more productive to create proxies for them rather than spending hours trying to find my original copies. But anyway, I feel like you should play this, as it can remove 4-strix from your extra monster zone, which can be beneficial if you are able to make follow-up plays later on. And also the fact that it can destroy all of your opponent's monsters definitely gives it a more utility within this deck. And next up, we are running 2 proxy versions of Infinite Impairments. Definitely an excellent card because it serves as both a normal trap card. However, if you have no cards on the field, it can serve as a hand trap, which can definitely make going second a lot better in this deck. Moving over to the extra deck, we are still running 3 copies of Raidraptor 4-strix. This is the main searcher card that you are going to be using to search out your Raidraptor level 4s, and it still provides the consistency that the deck desperately needs. Next up, we are running 1 copy of Bladeburner Falcon. Although I have not summoned this card as much as I used to, it is still come in handy when you have low life points and you want to get rid of 3 monsters at a time with more than 3,000 attack. And also the fact you can still summon it under the effect of Fuzzy Lanius definitely makes it very handy in this deck. Next up, we have a brand new addition in the form of Raidraptor Rise Falcon. Now, although I didn't run this in my older build because of the way that the game was played, being able to summon more Xyz monsters, to which I would often summon cards like Traptrix Rafflesia and Evil Swarm Nightmare. However, since you can't do that without the aid of Link summoning, which takes up more resources than the deck can actually handle at times, I feel like Rise Falcon is an excellent card for getting rid of your opponent's special summon monsters as it can target one of your opponent's monsters and then gain all of the attack points, and it will always have 100 more attack points than that monster. Next up, we are still running one copy of Abyss Dweller for decks that heavily rely on having effects activating in the graveyard like Light Swans. Next up, we are still running one copy of Ice Be Zero Fane. Definitely an excellent card to combat a really big board that comprises of both monsters and spell and trap cards that are face up, as it can negate all of their effects and gain attack points for every face up card on the field. Next up, we are still running the one German copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity. I have actually been considering taking this out of the deck because of the lack of synergy that it has with a certain Link monster that I've put into it. And also the 101 effect and the ability to negate a card isn't as good as it used to be, considering that it doesn't open any Link markers. But I'm still playtesting this card for now. However, I would maybe look into the Utopia rank 6 as a substitute. Next up, we are still running one copy of Raidraptor Revolution Falcon. Probably the second best Raidraptor card at the moment, because of the fact you can summon it with Soul Shaper Force and Skip Force, and the fact that it can easily get rid of your opponent's board of special summoned monsters and reduce all of their attack points and target and destroy a monster definitely makes it a very excellent offensive card. Next up, we are still running one copy of Satellite Falcon. Never been able to summon him for its effect, but I've mainly just used it as a gateway to summon the next card. Next up, we are running one copy of Raidraptor Ultimate Falcon. A card that has seen competitive play recently due to the release of Waking the Dragon, which you may want to consider putting into your side deck. And the fact that most Link monsters do not have attack points over 3,500 may actually make this card better moving forward. Next up, we are running two proxy copies of Apprentice Witchling. Now, although this card is not in the TCG at the moment, I feel like it is still very important for the deck, as most of the generic Link monsters are very difficult for this deck to summon, and I feel like this Link monster will benefit Raidraptors and Lair of Darkness moving forward, as it can increase their attack points by 500, and also, if it's destroyed by battle or card effects from your opponent, it can add one Dark Attribute monster from your graveyard back into your hand. Also, the fact it can reduce the stats of Light Attribute monsters down can make it very good against those decks. And finally, we have one copy of Proxy Dragon. I've never been able to summon him, but I still have it in there for instances where I might need to. Well, that is the end of my Lair of Dark Raidraptor deck profile. If you did enjoy the video, why not give it a like or share it with your friends? It would be greatly appreciated and will help the growth of the channel as a whole. I've been RagingRaidRaptor, and I'll see you all again next time.